Yes, we are now live. Hello, Instagrammers. I think I'm a bit... Is that better? You can see my kids' bikes and all that stuff there. Anyway, I'm waiting for the lovely Jonathan Hoban to join me. There he is. I can see his name. Let me just pull that down a little bit and say, hello, everybody. Hi, hi, hi. I'm going to get the gorgeous Jonathan on. Welcome to the lockdown sessions. That bike bothers me a little bit in the background, but hey-ho, I live with it. Let's get Jonathan. Oh, where did I lose you? I've lost your link. There he is. Jonathan Hoban. It's always exciting, isn't it? It's like doing a live television. Hello, the compostables. Hi, hello, Steely Bot.
I'm
hello,
here.
One More there.
Can you hear me? In my sweat lodge. So hot in here.
Himself. Open a window, love.
I have. It's fully open. I'd rather be outside, but I've got no signal out there. What is that in the background? Is that a hippo? What's that?
Yeah, that's Henrietta, my hippo.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that.
She's great. I move her around because I like long grass and I don't like the short grass. And so I move her so she gets furry around the feet and underneath, and then I like move bits of her. And yeah, she keeps me company here in the garden. So we've got lots of people who've already joined us. And hello to all of you. Somebody said get dancing. More mum dancing coming later. Oh, my little Robin's come to say hello. Oh, I'm loving working in the garden. It's very lovely. So for people who haven't joined us before, hello and a big warm welcome to you. These are the lockdown sessions. I am Judy Bradbury. You know that because you've tuned into my Instagram feed. And that man in that room is Jonathan Hoban, psychotherapist extraordinaire, really switched on man when it comes to matters of the mind. And we decided several weeks ago that we would have conversations once a week for you to talk about issues that have really become dominant during the coronavirus lockdown and the whole period. So without further ado, I'm going to crack on because we've got a lot to cover. But what we should say, of course, Jonathan, is hello, Rubbish Walks. What we should say is that everybody may or may not be aware that this is Mental Health Awareness Week.
Yeah.
I mean, we should all be mentally health aware every single week in Jonathan and my mind and eye. But it's great that there's a week where we can all talk very freely. We can open up about mental health. There's no shame. There's no embarrassment. And also lots of people are doing it. So it feels okay. Lots of well-known names, which is always good because it feels comforting that other people are going through stuff. But we want to help. So the theme for this year's Mental Health Awareness Week is kindness. So it makes perfect sense, Jonathan, that we kick off with that very subject. I'm going to start from the selfish point of view. Obviously, we know that being kind is nice for all of us, altruistically, on the whole. But why is kind, on a selfish note, why is kind good for us? Why is kindness good for us? What do we gain when we are kind from a mental health perspective? Because it's really important, isn't it?
Of course it is. If you can't nurture or look after yourself, how can you possibly then start to look after someone else? You know, so I think there's something about spending time with yourself, getting to know who you are, and also kind of learning how to meet your needs. You know, because we also sort of, there's different ways to nurture yourself. And I was, when Mental Health Awareness Week sort of came up, I was sort of very aware of the word mental health. It sort of refers very much to the mind, but it's so much more than that, isn't it? So it's broke for me. I always look at that sort of whole balance that we have in self into three parts: the psychological, the physiological, and the spiritual.
Okay. Stop there. I'm going to ask you to explain, you know what those are. What's the difference between those three states? What are they?
Okay, so the psychological for me is where we really think our way out of problems, don't we? There's a lot of reliance on the brain. So that cerebral part is really, really important, you know, the thinking part of the brain, you know, the sort of, let's think strategically, let's kind of, so we're more reliant on that part of the brain. Then we've got the physiological part, which is where our body needs to move. We're designed to move. We are animals, we are primal. So a lot of problems with burnout and work stress, especially in the city, is why people are sitting down. They're not moving. And when you sit down, your brain goes to sleep. I'm feeding, I'm sleeping, I'm grooving. That is the animal reaction, what happens. So moving is very, very important. And also how we feed ourselves, the type of, you know, in terms of if you pound yourself with sugar, you know, pound a kid with sugar, see what happens. You know, actually, I've been awful. I've been on the donut coffee diet sort of recently, which I have
I love a donut.
I do. It's too good. The combination is too good. But also I start feeling a bit sketchy. You know, I do.
Yes.
But also I notice when I'm not, my self-esteem is very, very based. A part of it is based on what I feed myself as well. And also, if I don't hydrate myself with water, I feel fatigued. My body stops working, my brain stops working, and my functionality comes down.
Right.
So then we've got the spiritual, and for me, this is really important. It's the spirit. You talked about kindness. It's that spirit to spirit connection, isn't it? You know, where you feel really seen, really heard. When you really look at someone, you feel really seen, and it comes from a really genuine place. It isn't for self-gain. It's like I'm wanting to give something to you and to make that spirit connection. And we all know what that feels like, when we suddenly don't feel alone in the world. And also for me, the spirit connection is the one that we have with nature. You know, that relationship that we have with nature, with the outside world. So that's the spiritual side. So these are the three elements of what we need to do. We need to, so if you don't do anything spiritual, if that part of that your life goes, if you don't kind of look after yourself in terms of what you eat, you will all be in the head. And a lot of people know what that feeling's like, that spinning around. But that, you know, so these three things need to work collectively together as a team. If you don't do that, you will feel your head pounding.
Everything's in here.
It's all, and when people say it's all in the head, I'm all in here. Have a look at those other aspects of your life, and are you maintaining them? Are you fulfilling them?
People, I think, can feel a bit embarrassed and a bit silly when you talk about a spiritual side.
Right.
I think there's still a bit of embarrassment around that. Not for me, and I get it, but sometimes I think that people think, oh, you're a bit hippie, and it's not really a part of everyday life. But it is, isn't it? It has to be. You have to accept. I mean, when you say about nature, 80% of us live in cities, so
Yes.
we don't have wild, beautiful landscapes. We don't all have coastlines around us. We don't all have gorgeous woodlands. We've got gardens if we're lucky. We've got window boxes if we're lucky, and we've got parks if we're lucky. But we should utilise all of those things, and that in itself is being spiritual, isn't it?
It is. And I caught your radio. I caught the radio when you were on Radio 4. And I loved what you said about this woman that came out of her front door and she turned left. She said she'd never gone left before. And she went into this walk into the woodlands. I thought that was so lovely, because that's so typical. Do you know how I've seen that over the course of the last 10 years with clients who come into my practice? They've lived literally down the road from a park and they've never ventured there. They've never gone there. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it does boggle the mind. It does, you know. And I think at the very least, I know, you know, we're all in lockdown, and you know, we frowned when people have gone into the parks, and you know, what the collective not respecting 2-meter distancing. But at least I think it's become very apparent that the reliance that we have upon nature, that spiritual aspect, us spiritually connecting with our families, us having time to spiritually connect with our friends, us having time to kind of just go outside and reconnect with nature. You know, it's going to be very interesting to see how people maintain and hold on to these connections when lockdown actually eases.
We've got some great comments coming in. I can't read them all, and it's quite difficult to get everybody's names. But people saying basically, yes, you're spot on. And First Lady Carr says, simple pleasures lead to a happy life. And John is saying, spirituality is a human trait. We are complex creatures. We are designed to collaborate with nature and not fight it. All of that is true, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are. I mean, I think we're, you know, around a fire, dancing, singing, eating, building things, going for walks, you know, and all of a sudden we're kind of locked in. We've got traffic noise. We're stuck in trains. We're stuck in cars. You know, there's a lot of sitting down, isn't there? You know, if you think about it, you know.
So we know that doing kindness is being kind is very important for us. Somebody commented. They said, "Oh, I've been kind over the years, but people don't seem to reciprocate." Does that matter? That's not really why you're kind, is it? But eventually, I suppose you do want something back, or is that just the selfish part of you?
You don't know what that person is thinking, what they've been left with. Just because they're not reactive doesn't mean that they've not taken something from that. So I think there's two types of kindness. The one that we do for selfish gain. I'm not saying that person's selfish, by the way, but we want that response from that other person. And then there's the other one where we just want to connect with someone. And in that moment, that person no longer feels alone, and we no longer feel alone. You know? And I think for those people, I think if you've ever been in that position in life where the world gets a little bit dark, and someone just with that authenticity really looks at you with soft eyes and kindness, in a darkened room, someone just shines a little bit of light. You feel that bit of warmth. You feel that little bit of love re-enter your life. And for some people, if that's not been present in your life for some time, it's just that ignition. It reignites and you're like, wow. You know, I remember when I went through a period of my life, I couldn't remember the last time I laughed and someone made me laugh. And I was like, wow. You know, so it can be profound. And when you're starved of something and someone gives you a little glimmer of something, you know, it can mean a hell of a lot. But don't walk away thinking that hasn't meant something to someone just because they don't give the reaction or the response back that you're looking for.
Soft eyes and kindness. That's what I've written down. I like that.
Soft eyes, nice smile. Yes, absolutely.
Soft eyes and kindness. We were talking about this earlier on because we like to plan where we're going to go with our conversation, so we know we've got constructive, useful advice for people. You said somebody gave you a great bit of advice. If you're really busy and you haven't got time to engage with somebody, with a friend, but you know that they will benefit from a bit of contact from you.
Yeah.
Your great thing. What did you say? You just said just send them this little message.
Yeah, it came actually from a therapist of mine, because my father had vascular dementia, so he was not as responsive as he had been, and he moved up sort of north. He moved to Cheltenham, very beautiful part of the world, but I couldn't see him as often, and so I couldn't engage in conversation. I couldn't engage in the ways that we used to. But my therapist said, just call him up and let him know that you're thinking about him. And I thought, isn't that too simple? But then I thought, if someone called me up and kind of said, I'm just letting you know that I'm thinking about you, it's quite a powerful thing. On some of the level, we all want to feel a bit special. It's nice to know that someone's thinking about us.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's very simple, but very powerful.
Very simple. I love that. Just that I'm thinking of you. That's a nice. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So we know that kindness is useful to us, and it's not just being kind. Yeah. What about what it does for other people? How can it help other people? You've touched on it a little bit, but it can be life-changing, that little moment, those soft eyes, that kindness, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I missed what you said. It broke up a little bit.
I'm just saying that it's such an important thing to do for other people, because how they respond to your kindness, it's raising their oxytocin levels, it's making them feel loved and wanted, even if it's for a moment. That can have a long-term impact on them. Absolutely. It changes lives. It really, really does. I mean, I can go back. The job that I do as well, I hear lots of stories from my clients, and there's always one or two moments in your life where someone has just given you their time, with not expecting anything in return, you know, but just sitting down and really listening. And really listening is really underrated. There's the type of listening where you're already thinking about the response, you know, and so you're not really fully present. And there's that one that comes from a place of such authenticity. And generally, I think it's either people are really either happy with themselves, they've reached such a place of authenticity in themselves, or a place of comfortability with themselves, or they just don't find themselves that interesting anymore, you know. And you're more fascinated by the people, you're more fascinated by the world, and you're genuinely fascinated by someone else, and you have something to give. And I think if you give to yourself, the more you give to yourself, we kind of are an emotional credit. And if we don't look after ourselves, we go into emotional deficit. And I think, let's say you're 1,000 in emotional credit, you've got something to give someone. And if you're emotional deficit and you give something to someone because you feel that you have to, you'll kind of end up resenting it as well. But I think also sometimes you have to give to kind of get back. But again, there's something, I think the moments that you're talking about, the moments that are life-changing, are when there is no hidden agenda. There is nothing transactional about it. I'm going to give you something if you give me something back. It comes from a pure, loving, warm, genuine, authentic place. And those moments are really felt if it's given with the right intention and the right heart and love. And that's all about being kind to ourselves, isn't it? I know that you have an interesting interpretation of the word selfish. We've touched on this issue in previous sessions, me time and being selfish. but that being very, very important. And actually being selfish is not, it's not the negative thing always that we think it is. That connotation is not fair.
No, it was something that it was only kind of when I was actually writing the book, and it's funny when you're writing, you know, because I wouldn't say I've had to teach myself to become academic. So but funny when you start looking at words and how powerful words are, you know, and also the history behind words and the connotation that we place next to words. So the word selfish there's something quite slavishly, or there's something very negative about the word selfish, isn't there? But there's something so fundamentally important about when we choose, when we need to be a bit selfish. So I say selfish, self-care. Selfish, self-care. Yeah.
And let's hammer home this point. Self-care, it goes back to those three things you mentioned earlier, the psychological, the physiological, and the spiritual. Yeah. Self-care isn't getting lost in drink every night. Self-care isn't eating a box of donuts twice a week, or that's not... As good as it feels for that moment, that isn't actually self-care, is it?
It's not self-care.
And you deal with a lot of that because you deal with a lot of people who live in cities and are suffering from burnout, and that tends to be their escape route. And it's not really an escape route, it's just leading them down a mental health cul-de-sac, isn't it? Well,
and that's the thing. They might say, well, I go to the gym and then I sort of head out straight for a drink later, as long as I do that. So self-care is, I think there's got to be a consistency with self-care, and we all struggle with that. You know, I mean, since lockdown, I mean, I'm drinking coffee like it's going out of fashion. It really is. But my body will not allow me to get away with anything. It won't, you know. So, I mean, I went running last night. I go for a walk every day. Actually, my diet's pretty good, you know. And I try to get, I know everybody's being affected by sleep, but our body knows and will let us know when we're not looking after it. And yes, absolutely. I think that people will look at the brain and just, there we go. Oh, people will look at the brain and just go, why am I feeling this way? You know, and I will always point out, what's your lifestyle? What's your social lifestyle? When you getting back in the evening? No, it's not that. It's not that. There's something, it's got to be something else. I think people underestimate just how powerful, you know, when we don't look after the body, just how powerful the effect that has upon the mind. It's extraordinary.
Somebody's just popped up there. Can't take too much caffeine. Caffeine, I do 1, maybe 2 cups of coffee a day. Yeah. And that's it. And I'm not really a coffee aficionado, and it would be very milky. Oat milk. It's basically like an oaty milk latte thing. Coffee flavored milk. Too much coffee is a bad thing, and too much late at night, that's another no-no, isn't it?
Don't talk to me. I have a coffee before I go out at night. Oh, it's awful, isn't it? I know.
Well, if you're going out tonight to stay up, then that's a different thing.
Well, for a walk, you know. No. I think it's everything in equal measure. The one thing I've really noticed is drinking water. I know it's such a simple thing, but when you're not hydrated, the concentration goes. You feel exhausted. I mean, I've got to be the worst person when it comes to hydrating. I'm actually drinking now, and this room is not helping, to be honest with you. I'm probably losing as much water as I'm drinking. I'm juice. Yeah, water with a bit of cordial in it.
Just self-checking on you.
but it is powerful. Even that one little thing has a dramatic effect.
So let's move on to our next topic, because people are, I think, becoming more and more anxious. Our feelings have changed. All of our emotions have changed because they've had to over the last several weeks, week after week after week in lockdown, this weird situation. How do we edge ourselves slowly back into life, which we all now know is not going to be for a long time. It's not going to be the life that we have known. And a particular thing that this might spark something in you. I did a social distancing walk with a friend of mine the other week, and she was on one side of the street and I was on the other. We basically timed it. We would go to the park at the same time. And some guy went on her side of the street, went very close to her and was in her space, and she got really upset and very angry about it. It's like, what's wrong with him? You know, why would he do that kind of thing? And I think people are feeling angry and tetchy if people don't behave in the way that they want them to behave. And how should you monitor yourself and sort of calm yourself in those situations now that we're being let back out slowly?
Yeah, this is where we're talking about mental health awareness. I completely agree. This is where we have to have a real awareness. I noticed one thing probably about 2-3 weeks ago, that lots of people had stopped talking about COVID, or they didn't want to hear about anything to do with anything, because again, everybody's getting very, very tired. And it's a thing that happens when due to conditioning. So if we're in isolation for a prolonged period of time, we start isolating emotions within ourselves. We start compartmentalizing. And especially if we're feeling feelings that are uncomfortable, we don't really like that for prolonged periods of time, especially when the result is we are feeling stress. So we just push them to one side. What I've noticed is as lockdown is easing and we're now going out again, people are starting to bring those emotions. Those emotions are coming up for a lot of people. And I think we need to be very mindful, especially around where our frustration, where our anger goes. Because I think it's all too easy. Someone comes, walks in our path and we're like, they can have it. Rather than take accountability for why am I feeling irritated? Why am I feeling annoyed? Bringing it back to you and having that boundary before I react. Let me ask myself why I'm feeling this way. So I think we need to have a personal boundary first and foremostly, and be very mindful of feelings that can come up as lockdown eases and our emotions start coming up again and we start venturing out into the world, for sure.
You said something great earlier on to me, which is as we start to go back out and we encounter people, perhaps like my friend who came too close, and it upset her, and she's worried about her health, and that's fine, she's allowed to be. Tell me about scripting, because I know it's something that you put in your book.
Sure.
You were talking about sort of perhaps preempting certain situations that might make you feel uncomfortable and then teaching yourself how to deal with it. How does that work?
Well, what happens is the animal brain just wants to react. So often we don't have the time to really cerebrally think about a response. So what a script does is, let's say a situation happens, in terms of what happened to your friend, who, jogger gets too close. That may happen. You may walk away from that situation thinking, how could I have done that better? Yeah. So then the best thing to do is, because you can't turn back time, for next time, you prepare for next time. What would my script be? Yeah. So the script is, when I start feeling angry, or if someone comes too close and I want to kind of really throw my anger at them, why are you getting so close? It's just kind of thinking up, look, I'm really sorry. This is just my value system at the minute. I know that you're deciding that you don't want to, so the 2 meter distance may not apply to you, but it does apply to me. And I'd really appreciate if you respect my space and respect the fact that this is what makes me feel comfortable and this is what makes me feel uncomfortable, if you ever get into dialogue. But also I think with scripting, it makes you aware. You're going into the future and you're thinking, if this situation arises, how should I behave? And it helps you create a boundary for that situation. So when the animal brain does go, you have got something in place, which helps us to feel safe. Yeah, I
think that's a really good bit of advice there, because it's something we are all going to have to get used to. And another thing that you can say as well, and I know that you get harassed sometimes, don't you, because you do your walking therapy, and sometimes people are like, oh, you're always on the phone, and you say, excuse me, I'm offering therapy to people, and then they're like, oh. And so you can, if you are somebody who's immunocompromised and you say, I'm immunocompromised, I'm sorry, this is actually dangerous for me, that also makes people think in a different way.
It does. I mean, I think scripting is must be similar to media training in some respect,
Training? We don't get any training.
Well, absolutely.
We don't do it.
but I think when I was working with, I worked with young offenders for a period of time. And I think in the situations where people can suddenly be very volatile, my reaction would go to fear, to anxiety. I would have to think, what do I say? And especially when I was very younger, I was very shy, I was very anxious. I would also get very stuck in the headlights of what do I say? So the more scripts you create, you've got a toolkit of scripts for different situations. And I always say to someone, if you walk away from a situation that you find that didn't go that well, write down the situation, figure out a different script, and then next time it happens, you are prepared. And you can apply this to loads of different situations.
Yes, work situations, in personal relationships as well.
Absolutely.
Paul is saying people in Windsor on the high street, they don't talk to each other anymore. And if they do, whisper. And then it's almost like it's a crime to talk. to other people. That's going to be one of the weird things we're all going to have to deal with, isn't it? There's sort of almost guilt about engaging in social interaction, which we are still allowed to do.
Well, don't let it stop you engaged, though. That's the thing. I mean, I think it's a case of always be authentic with yourself, you know? Absolutely. Just remain. I think, again, that comes up again, doesn't it? In terms of we're sort of thinking about how we should behave, we're thinking, how should I behave? If someone else is behaving like this, how should I behave? Do I follow suit? Do I behave the same way as them? Because I think right now what's going to happen is there's going to be a 50-50 split. People that want to go back to normal life straight away because they've just been so locked away for ages, they want to sort of just get back into it. And those that really are still feeling very protective of everything that's kind of happened. So you're going to have a huge divide there. And I think where it kind of emphasizes for me, basically where we start following people, you know, where in life we may have just suddenly followed the crowd, and where we've made a decision that we no longer want to follow the crowd, where we allowed ourselves to be a little bit more unique, be guided by our own leadership, being guided by our own intuition. So I think there's something very powerful that we can start getting in touch with, and that can be very, very beneficial to us. And, I think it gets magnified and highlighted in this situation as well.
I think we've certainly all reconnected. A lot of people have reconnected with nature. They're hearing the birds because they can hear them more. The skies are blue. There are no planes. And yes, it's the time to reconnect with ourselves and learn about our intuition again, which is something that we've all let go because you don't have to do any of that stuff that we used to do. Just 100 years ago, you had to follow the stars. You knew what the tides meant. You grew your own food, or at least you knew where your food came from. All of that's just gone, wiped out.
Someone just said, dare I say the words common sense? Absolutely. Yeah. That's the thing, you know?
Yeah.
I wanted to do my friend to do a little animation. And I wanted them to do 2 zebras, like, and one of them's like got an app, like a lion app, and they're sort of saying to the other one, they're like going, don't worry, we're safe, mate. I've got it on an app. it tells me when a lion's close. And there's a lion just standing right in front of them, just going, I'm here, man. I'm here. Just look up. You know. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? You know. Yeah,
that's a good one. We should get Graham Bandera. He's the Yorkshire Post cartoonist. We should get him to do that one because apps and bloody sat nav. We don't go anywhere without them anymore. Right, we're going to end on something happy because we've started on giving people lots of take-home information. So I follow Elizabeth Gilbert, who's the author of Eat, Pray, Love, on social media, and she has sort of found herself in later life, and she's great. She's very inspiring, and she does some interesting posts and stuff. And one thing that I've stolen from her, and then you in turn have adapted, I'm going to do my version. So for everybody out there who's feeling glum and a little bit sad, and we all have those days, moments, sometimes it's weeks, you know, we've all been there and we all have that. Nobody is up here all the time. That just doesn't exist. But for those little dips, what we have in our house is called the happy jar. And we've written down things that make us happy or have made us happy. So it could be holiday memories, or sometimes photograph that we've actually managed to print off and folded it up and put it in the jar and stuff. Yeah. And when anybody in our family is having a bad day, a bad moment, or anything else, they go to the happy jar, they take this thing out and they read it, and inevitably a smile appears on their face, and it just makes you feel nice. Just makes you feel good and lifts you up. You've got more technical on it. I like your thing. So what's your version of the happy jar?
Yeah, it was more. So I said, if you get 3 different bits of paper and you write down on one of them, friends or people that you've connected with, either in the past, now, or in the present, and conversations you're having with them that you love. What is it about those conversations that you love? What is it about those? The person in front of you that you love? What is it about that whole dynamic? So write that down. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4 people, as many as you want. Wrap it up and put it in a jar. The second thing is places you've been to. What places have I been to in the world? What came up for me in those places? What memories do I have that really left me feeling like, wow, were very inspiring? Or, you know, the memory, that kind of those moments that really stay with you, you know, so write down a few places that you've had that experience. And the third one is, we've all had hobbies that we've either put down or we've disconnected with for one thing or another. We get trapped in the tunnel vision life. It's very easy. We all do it. I know that I do. So whether it's an exercise, whether it's a musical instrument, whether it's a craft, what is it about those things that you love? How does it leave you feeling at the end of the day? Yeah. So I want you to wrap up all those bits of paper and put it in a jar, and then you put that jar in a cupboard. Right. I'm going to give you the end version of it now.
Good.
So 2 days later, you come back to the cupboard and you open them up. And before you open the jar, I always say, now this is the kind of the answer to the whole exercise. When we lock it away, that's what we do in life. That's what we can do in life, where we put ourselves down, where we lose a sense of these things remind us of who we are, the authenticity, the things where we have that connection with something, whether it be a person, a place, or a thing, that reminds us of who we are, why we're living our life, the experiences that make us feel alive, warm, and just exhilarated to kind of really be here. And and when you open the jar, and before you open the jar, over those 2 days, what are the 3 things that you've been thinking about, even before, that you wrote down, that have stayed with you the most? And they're the 3 things you should put at the top of your list to bring back into your life today. I heard every excuse why not to do them. There's always going to be something. There is always going to be something. These things you have got to prioritize, because again, if you don't do these things that remind you of who you are, that connect you with your authentic self, how can you possibly give a bit of yourself to someone else? You know? And I think it's about being happy. It's about, and I know when we all know what that experience is like, don't we? When we pick up something we've put down and we go, why haven't I done this? Why have I put this down for so long? So there we go. And then just open them up and just remind yourself, like you said, of things that you love to do.
I like it. So we've got a bit of homework to do. We've got a bit of homework to do this week at the end of this session. I'll quickly scroll through some of the messages if we've missed anything. Where our time is up. It's kind of difficult if things are a thing you aren't expecting to happen, spur of the moment, and then they take you by surprise. Yes, I mean that is, but that's life, isn't it? Dealing with stuff that's thrown at us. It does all take us by surprise. And that's what resilience is.
Yeah, things are always going to happen. And I think we always need to step out of our comfort zone. And if you don't have the confidence to do it, just pretend. That fake it to make it is the Pygmalion effect, you know? If we don't feel that we have the courage to do, pretend that you do. And you've always got to push yourself out of the comfort zone. The more you hide, the more fear sort of takes the better of you. So I always think just always push yourself. But if you think things are going to be consistent, life is always going to throw things at you. But we always have the ability to deal with it. So don't ever think that you don't have it within you. We all do.
Auntie Angela said that she got hit by a football in the park yesterday and it made her really angry, which you would do when you get smacked in the face or the body by a hard football. That would. So, Auntie Angela, go away and write the script for that if it happens again. Hopefully it won't, though. It's a bad bit of goaliness or footiness, whatever it is.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's going to happen. If I got hit in the face for the football, I'd be really annoyed. Yeah.
Right, I'm going to try and get those things down. Okay, guys. Well, this has been our live Instagram session. Hopefully it's been useful. What I'm going to try and do now is record it when we say goodbye. And upload it. Do more lives, says Amisam13. We will. Okay, we will.
Absolutely.
Hopefully it's been helpful to you. Jonathan, always a pleasure, my love. I mean, of the 15 conversations we've had today, this has been the best.
Absolutely. I'm going to get that hippo. I want one of those. My kids would absolutely love that as well.
Yeah. And happy Mental Health Awareness Week, everybody. Remember, the take home from this session is be kind to yourself. Important, be kind to others. Have a script in case you get upset, and don't forget those happy jars. We're going to sign off and say goodbye for now, but we'll be back and you'll be able to watch this, we hope, up on theoutdoorguide.co.uk. And if for some reason this technical thing doesn't work, we'll do it again and we'll make sure that we get it up there for you.
Absolutely.
Goodbye, everybody.
See you, Julia. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.